Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Matt Lateplo, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for today's battery and precious metals presentations. Our next live presentation comes from Precipitate Gold Corp. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you are interested in scheduling a meeting with Precipitate Gold, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You'll be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Jeff Wilson, President, CEO, and Director of Precipitate Gold Corp., which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol PREIF and on the TSXV under the symbol PRG. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks everybody for joining here today. I'm going to take some time here to walk through the Precipitate story. Some may be attending here who are familiar with some of the background. Others, this may be a new story. So I'll sort of try to cover as much as I can of the background and the future outlook for the company going forward. On that note, we do ask that investors do their own due diligence and be mindful of forward-looking statements that I will be making here during this presentation. As a quick snapshot of the company and the corporate highlights, the company's sitting on about $6.5 million in working capital, essentially unallocated and available to be spent as we see fit. No debt, no underlying obligations. We've got 3 drill-ready projects in the Dominican Republic. I'll speak about 2 of those during this presentation. We do have an earn-in agreement on our Pueblo Grande project, and that's an earn-in with Barrick, one of the world's largest publicly traded gold mining companies. We'll talk a little bit about the work that's being done there. And we've just completed a drill program on our Mother Lode project in Newfoundland, Canada. I'll talk a little bit about that. And lastly, we won't speak so much about this today, but with the cash that we have on hand, we are and have been spending the better part of the last few months looking seriously at projects, opportunities, and ways to leverage this cash that we have in the treasury into something accretive for shareholders. A look at the capital structure. We've got about 130 million shares issued and outstanding, about 153 million fully diluted. Working capital now, as I said, is in the ballpark of about $6.5 million. Market cap's about 11, so we're not trading much higher than our cash value at present. And you can see, although the better part of 2022 was a bit of a difficult year for Precipitate in terms of the share price, as it was for many of our peers, we've seen a little bit of a gradual uptick here in recent months as we've got active again with drilling in Newfoundland and some work activity going on by Barrick in the Dominican Republic. Barrick also is a shareholder to the tune of just under 10%. Management and insiders have about 6% of the company's stock. People, obviously, anytime you're betting on a junior exploration company, the quality of the people becomes paramount. We think we've got a very strong, experienced, proven, and well-balanced team on the board and management level. I won't take time to go through everybody's CV, but I will say that this is a company that's built largely on the focus toward discovery, geological expertise, and business acumen, where we've put together in our resumes some pretty impressive prior transactions with mid-tier and major companies. So as I mentioned, we've got 3 projects in the Dominican Republic. You can see here we've indicated the 3 projects in red. Our Ponton project, sort of over on the towards the east within the country, is a project that's drill ready, about 20-30 kilometers away from a major mining district. Over on the other side of the country, towards the west, we've got our Wanda Herrera project, which I'll talk about at the tail end today, which is situated immediately adjacent to a known multi-million ounce deposit that's at the permitting stage presently. And I'll start out by talking about the central project here, our Pueblo Grande project, which sits adjacent to one of the largest gold mining operations in the world, operated by Barrick. And we've now got an earn-in agreement with Barrick, where Barrick has partnered with us on that project. As I mentioned, we're next to Barrick's Pueblo Viejo mine, one of the biggest mines in the world. If you don't know what that looks like, this photograph will give you an indication of just how big this project is in terms of infrastructure and scale. As I said, it's one of the top 5 gold mining operations in the world. It's had about $4.3 billion in infrastructure put into it. Barrick is now talking about an additional $1 billion investment to increase the size and scale of the operation. And it's one of the well, in fact, it is the single largest contributor to the Dominican Republic's economy. So, for anyone who doesn't know or associate mining with the Dominican Republic, this is a significant driver to that country's economy. The country understands the benefits of mining, has been benefiting from mining in terms of taxation and jobs for many years, and recognizes the importance of mining. And our project, as I said, is situated immediately adjacent to this operation. This is Pueblo Viejo here in white in the central portion of this map. Big open pits up to the north end of their project, and that's Precipitate's ground in yellow, essentially surrounding them on 2 sides, well, 3 sides, and right up against their claim boundary. So after we acquired this project for about $25,000 cash and some shares back in 2018, 2019, we entered into 18 months later, we entered into an earning agreement with Barrick, whereby Barrick agreed to spend $10 million US over 6 years to earn a 60% interest in the project. And by bringing the project to a pre-feasibility stage in that time, you can see the scaled expenditure commitments that they have to meet on an annual basis, which I think keeps them honest and ensures that the project sees systematic exploration by Barrick on an annual basis. Middle of last year, we announced a transaction with Barrick whereby our land package was a little bit bigger and included the areas within these red ellipses. But after some work in these areas and recognizing that there was really no meaningful mineralization in either of those 2 areas, Barrick approached us about an interest in acquiring that ground outside of the earning agreement to put into their mine area. And we agreed to a deal that saw Barrick contribute $5 million cash to Precipitate and a 3% NSR on these pieces of ground in exchange for relinquishing this to Barrick. So that's partly what put us into this enviable cash position that we find ourselves in today. So Barrick has acquired these 2 pieces of ground for infrastructure and continues to spend on the remaining area that you see here in yellow with the ongoing earn-in agreement. Most recently, Barrick has reported to us that they are reactivating exploration in this area immediately west of their their mine operation. They're looking for both high sulfidation epithermal style mineralization near surface, as well as a sort of a renewed or a new target, which is a copper gold porphyry style target at depth. Again, both in this area immediately west of their mining operation. They've done ground geophysics, have done significant amount of hand-dug trenches within this area. They've been reviewing old data and have put together what we believe to be quite a compelling pending exploration program that we hope will culminate with a drill program of up to 3,000 meters of drilling, again, in this area immediately adjacent to their operation. And we expect to see a significant amount of news flow from that over the coming balance of 2023. Moving on to our Newfoundland asset, our mother lode asset here in sort of eastern part of Newfoundland. We acquired this project a couple of years ago. We took this project through extensive groundwork, mapping, sampling, airborne geophysics, and ground geophysics, and brought this to a drill stage within about 18 months from acquisition. And as you can see, this is located in a peninsula, a district within Newfoundland that's quite active. It's not in the heart of Newfoundland where some of the high flyers are operating, such as Newfound Gold and the people surrounding that, or Marathon. But this is an emerging district with its own geological merit, and there are a number of companies identifying some significant mineralization here within this district. When we acquired the property package, which is outlined here in red, we put in a fair bit of time consolidating what had been a number of individual land packages held by a number of different landowners. And we were able to consolidate a significant contiguous land package here for the first time ever. And so what that brought was a project that now had multiple known mineralized showings, areas of prior drilling. And we saw an opportunity here to look at this project through a different lens and look to see whether or not we could identify a significant area for a first phase of drilling. We did a number of different phases of exploration, as I mentioned: geophysics, geochemistry, etc. Ultimately, it was our ground geophysics, or IP, chargeability surveying over the mother lode zone in sort of the central part of the project, where we saw some of the highest grade grab samples on an outcrop that were running up to 25 grams per ton gold. There had also been some prior drilling here, but what was interesting about this geophysical survey, without getting overly technical, is that we identified a high chargeability body, if you will, anomaly beneath the surface expression that had never been intersected with a drill bit in prior drilling. So we saw an opportunity here to test that chargeability anomaly to see whether or not there was pyrite content, which would in most cases indicate presence of gold, and whether or not we could intersect that with the drill bit and evidence it's mineralized. We completed, in fact, just announced yesterday, 12 holes, about 2,700 meters of drilling within that mother lode zone. The most notable result that we're indicating here on this slide is that hole 12 intersected that high chargeability and that pyrite gold zone at depth. Modest mineralization, we're talking a gram over 10 meters sort of thing. So not really the high grade material that we were hoping for, or the significant enough interval of a lower grade that we would like to see. But what it did indicate to us is that this chargeability anomaly that had never been intersected is in fact mineralized, and gives us some encouragement to perhaps go back and see whether or not we can test additional parts of this chargeability anomaly that remain untested, to see whether or not we can identify either higher grade material or bulk tonnage style mineralization, which would be bigger intervals of moderate grade. And sort of the indication of that comes from this slide, where you can see here the sort of the colors there in the lower portion. That indicates where we did the geophysical survey and where we did our drilling. But we can see here that this corridor, this chargeability anomaly, remains open to the northeast, and along that corridor for about another 2 kilometers has never really been tested. So part of what we're doing on the back of yesterday's news release on the mother lode drill results is to evaluate and review the merit of going back and better delineating, outside of the area that we tested previously, to see whether or not there's the potential to go back with the drill bit and test along this approximately 3-kilometer long corridor, to see whether or not we may have the opportunity to follow up this drilling with more drilling, with a slightly different interpretation of the target model, and looking to identify more meaningful mineralization down the road. So Mother Lode is a project that we're happy with, we're encouraged with. We've got some decisions to make over the coming months here as to how we want to tackle that next. We've got Barrick obviously spending on our Pueblo Grande project. But lastly, I wanted to touch on our Juan de Herrera project, which is located also in the Dominican Republic. It's over towards the western side of the country, and again is situated immediately adjacent to a known resource project called Romero, which is operated by a company called Gold Quest Mining. Romero is a multi-million ounce pre-feasibility stage gold copper deposit that is in the process of getting itself permitted to move through development and toward production. And we believe that the project we have there is a significant exploration opportunity within the same exploration environment, same geological environment, yet remains relatively undertested over the course of the last several years. So this gives you an indication, again, where are we? This is Gold Quest and their Romero project in gray. Up in the north end, the 2 stars there indicate the Romero deposit, if you will, where there's about 3.5 million ounces gold equivalent in an existing 43101 compliant resource. There's also multiple, those blue dots indicate multiple additional exploration targets within Gold Quest project that we think are highly prospective for ongoing discovery. Our ground in yellow, as you can see, sits right up against their claim boundary or concession boundary for about 40 kilometers from top to bottom. We are in the same largely in the same geological environment, the same rocks. This is the Torreo Formation. And so we believe that not only have we got significant mineralization indicated through our own exploration and drilling that we've done over the years, but there are multiple secondary targets, those red dots within our project, that remain undertested and have significant exploration potential for ongoing advancement and possible future discovery. Many of these are situated up against or close to the concession boundary, and there's reason to believe that a lot of this mineralization may continue from Gold Quest ground onto precipitates or vice versa. So we see this as a highly prospective belt, relatively underexplored. We've really only done 2 phases of drilling on this entire property package. And down in the south end, we've seen some indications of some quite compelling copper-rich numbers in mineralization as well, with copper samples running up to 13% copper in some surface expressions down in the southeast zone of the project as well. Interesting to note that Gold Quest is sitting on a significant treasury. They had an injection of capital from mid-tier mining company Agnico Eagle several years ago. Agnico put about $23 or $24 million in equity financing into Gold Quest, I think on the belief that this belt had the potential to generate something more substantial than a few million ounces. And I think you have the potential here for mid-tier major companies to look at this belt, not only because of its gold affinities, but also significant copper values, which currently are becoming much more in favor with a lot of the miners as the global demand for base metals and copper increases. We've got our drill permits. We have our exploration concessions. We're in a position to be able to expend here at our discretion. We've put this project on hold mainly because our neighbors, Gold Quest, have been unable to attain an all-important exploitation permit to be able to continue on with the advancement of their project. And so this project of Romero has been somewhat in limbo for several years, awaiting government approval. And we've elected that in our estimation that the better use of funds for us is to proceed spending money in places where we have a little more clarity of path. And so this project has been, as I said, sort of put on hold for us. But at such time as the political and the community environment improves, we would expect to go back here and deploy a significant amount of money with, as I said, permits, concessions, targets already in place, and a number of samples that we've taken from this belt that have not yet been submitted to the lab. So again, an opportunity to sort of turnkey news flow from this project if we see an opportunity to get active here again, and we hope to do that in the relatively near future, assuming that as I say, the political environment allows for that. Just to give you an indication, and this I know on this screen, this is a little bit, it's tough to see. It's not particularly legible at this size and scale, but this is a map that shows sort of the combination of both projects and the proliferation of incredibly high-grade material that has been reported from both Gold Quest and Precipitate, really from tip to tail in this entire district, which runs, like I say, about 40-50 kilometers from top to bottom. Much of this ground has never been drilled. And you're seeing, gold samples of over 60 grams per ton gold, copper samples over 13% copper, a really high proliferation of high-grade gold and copper mineralization throughout. And we see this as a significantly prospective, underexplored district that we think has the potential to be tested for significantly more mineralization on both sides of the claim boundary here. So in summary, we've got our mother lode project that I mentioned. Drilling was completed. We did successfully intersect our target, if you will, with respect to the high chargeability anomaly, and did indicate that we had hit pyrite gold zone. The grades, of course, were not as compelling as we were hoping, but we've got a 3-kilometer corridor here that remains untested for possible future follow-up. We're currently looking at the merit of doing that, and we will go back and be reviewing the data to see whether or not we see an indication or justification to go back here and test some additional targets along strike and along that corridor. In the Dominican Republic, we've got our Pueblo Grande project, which is in partnership with Barrick. Barrick, I should reiterate, Barrick has earned nothing on this project to this point. The only way that they get to their 70% interest in our Pueblo Grande is to complete 6-year, $10 million spend and deliver a pre-feasibility study. And that 6 years will expire in 2026. So we're nearly halfway through the earn-in, and it's an all or nothing for Barrick. They get 70%, or if they don't spend that money and provide the deliverables, the project maintains, we maintain a 100% interest in the project. We expect a fairly aggressive 2023 from Barrick now that they've extracted the pieces of ground that they needed for their infrastructure. They are now revamping and refocusing their exploration efforts. We're quite pleased with the fact that they've delineated a porphyry target at depth on our project, and those are traditionally rich, high-grade, sometimes sources for known mineralization near surface. And so we're pretty excited about the potential for Barrick to test for something like that. We expect a significant drill program to happen sometime later this year, and we're hoping that there will be steady news flow to come out of that exploration from Barrick through the balance of 2023. Our Pronton project is about 25 kilometers away from our Pueblo Grande. I didn't really talk about that in this presentation for the sake of time, but this is a project that is drill ready. It's permitted and is in an area where if we were to find something meaningful there, the proximity to Barrick's existing operation might make it quite compelling as a possible satellite to the activities that's going on in and around Pueblo Viejo. Lastly, our Wanda Herrera project also in the Dominican Republic, adjacent to Gold Quest. Significant exploration upside, significant exploration potential, fully permitted, full license for exploration, but we are electing to take the view that, why spend money to try to find gold in an area where the people next to us who have already found it are not able to extract it. We need that clarity of path from the locals. We need that clarity of path from the government. We're working very closely with the government in communications on that. We are aware that the government is in favor. The government, quite frankly, simply wants to make sure that this can be done in a way that that is pleasing, if you will, to all stakeholders, both corporations, government, local communities, and those concerned about the environment. I'm quite confident we can get there, and that our Wanda Herrera project will be a significant value driver for the company going forward. Lastly, I don't talk about it here, but we've got a little bit of time. The cash on hand. So with over nearly $7 million in the treasury, all of our projects in the Dominican Republic are owned 100%. We've got a modest underlying option agreement on mother lode, so most of our money is discretionary for us to spend it. And so with that injection of capital, especially last year when markets were quite beaten up and access to capital was quite difficult, we really felt as if we had an ace in the hole a little bit here to be able to leverage that cash for possible acquisitions. So we've been looking extensively at new project opportunities. We've been looking at possible M&A opportunities where someone with a what we believe to be a good project, who's maybe had a little bit of a challenge raising capital, could be combined with Precipitate, combined management teams, bring in a project, bring in the cash, and be able to move a project forward. However, you have to kiss a lot of frogs, and identifying the right opportunity that's a fit for our skill set that we believe is a real accretive value driver and can be achieved under terms that are beneficial to both parties, but most importantly, the people I work for, which is the Precipitate shareholders, is a challenge, and it takes some time. But we are still looking at that quite extensively. There are a number of opportunities currently being reviewed now, and that, I guess, maybe is a bit of a wild card here with respect to a value driver, is that how can we leverage that cash into something accretive that can be a driver for share price and market cap appreciation, and we're looking seriously at that. In the interim, we need to keep moving forward and make sure that our projects and our exploration projects are advancing, and we're doing that on several fronts. With that, that's the end of my presentation. I've got a few minutes here for Q&A, so I'll get to the questions that have been presented here now. First question, when do you expect the November 2022 drill results from Motherlode? Well, they came out yesterday. So we've put out the news on those drill results, as I mentioned during the presentation. Fairly, moderate in terms of grade. We were certainly hoping for something better. Obviously, in that part of the world, high grade material sort of moves the needle. But what we did gain in the way of intelligence from the drilling was a reinterpretation of the target mineralization to more of a sort of a lower grade bulk tonnage type model, which I think will play a role in how and if and how we revisit drilling at Motherlode, looking at the project and looking at the target through a different lens. And I'm hoping that we'll start to get some guidance on that from the technical team over the coming months. We're not in a rush to do that, but I think we want to ensure that if there's something there left to be tested, that we don't walk away prematurely. So we'd definitely like to spend some time revisiting the data and see whether or not there's an opportunity to go back and test that with you. Next question. Any thoughts on timing for when you make the decision to further explore Motherlode? Yeah, I think I just kind of touched on that a little bit. Good question. There's no rush. The project is in good standing for several months without us having to really do anything. So I think, again, with these situations, sometimes you gain technical information, technical insights from drilling intervals that are maybe not exciting to the market, but it does give our exploration and technical teams a better understanding of what it is we're looking for and how to better vector toward, mineralization. I think we've gained a different perspective on the project now, and I think what we have to look at now is sort of the return on investment. Again, we're not in the business of science projects here. I mean, what we're looking for here is appreciation for market cap and our shareholder investment, and trying to find deposits that are meaningful enough to attract and be interested not only to the market, but also to mid-tier and major companies. So we'll look at the data to evaluate to see whether or not we think it's got a valuable return on investment for us to go back. Thoughts on your valuation and what the market is missing? Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting question. It's challenging when you always feel like you're undervalued as a junior exploration company. I think the one driver is, look, we can go into projects and we can drill and we can have success, or we can be disappointed. The one thing that I think that we have as a value driver that we're not getting fully recognized for is cash. I mean, that cash is not speculative. It's in the bank and provides a significant value to us. And the fact that we've got $7 million in cash and just a market cap of 10 or 11 million, when we've got a project in Newfoundland, we've got a project next to a multi-million ounce deposit at Romero, and we've got a project that was attractive enough to one of the largest miners in the world to come in and spend $10 million over 6 years. That project is going to see news flow. We're really not getting a lot of credit in the market for the exploration potential of the portfolio that we've put together. I think part of that is political. The Dominican Republic is still a bit of a question mark for some people, and our proximity to the questions surrounding Romero and Gold Quest are still yet to be answered. But we think there's real value there, and our job is to try to get that value reflected in the share price, and that's part of doing things like this. Next question. I've only got a couple minutes here. Did drilling at Motherlode show any indication of chargeability dips downward as it comes to the northeast? Yeah, the chargeability, we don't really know. I mean, it looks as if it may be dipping a little bit as it heads to the northeast, but we just didn't run the survey far enough in that direction to get a better handle on where that chargeability is headed. And so again, that's a question for us to possibly look at going back and doing follow-up ground geophysical surveys to get a better handle on that. And again, happy to flesh out any of these questions more in depth if anybody wants to request a one-on-one with me. Last question that I see here, well, I've got about 20 seconds. can you discuss your 2023 drill programs and capital support? Well, we've got significant capital to drill anywhere that we wish at present, and we've got permits in hand for all of our projects for drilling. So really, it comes down to the question of will there be targets worth drilling, and do we think it's a viable return on investment? With that, that's my time. Again, I would ask anyone that wants to ask more questions or speak to me directly to communicate through the contact information on your screen or a one-on-one meeting through this event.